It's Cardboard Time, episode number 112, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, I have reviews of Perch and Pergola. Well, it's been a very busy time for me, but I figured I would get an episode out talking about a couple of games that I've been excited to talk about. I did post pictures of both of them on social media, and I thought that I would talk about them on this episode. No guest this week, but we'll see for next time who we might have. Let's also talk about that shelf of aspiration. It is back down to 115. That is down by 3, so it was up last time. It's back down this time. 2 games that came in, both of them were review copies, the first being Pergola and the second being Everdell Duo. And then 5 games I played. The first was Dead Reckoning. This was a very interesting game by AEG. I've had it in my collection for quite a while. I got the big Kickstarter edition with all the bells and whistles and then never really had time to play it. Mainly got it for the Cube Tower. I am a big Cube Tower fan, and I have some thoughts on it. I was kind of fascinated by the fact that maybe it's the fact that I had my first play with Jordan, who's also kind of conflict averse, but we didn't really use the Cube Tower all that much, and that was like the most fascinating part of the game. But I do want to play this with a fuller player count, maybe make the board a little bit more compact and tight, where you would have to do some more of that combat to get out ahead in the game. So, interesting game. I do definitely want to play it again. I enjoyed it. Not sure of my review at this point, though. Big Sur was another game that I played. I'd like to get one more play of it in before I talk about it, but very enjoyable. I really like the theme on it. I thought building roads in California was kind of interesting, unique, and fun. Very simple game, easy to pick up as well, but I do want to play one more game of that. Another game that I want to play some more, and I do want to play the campaign version of it before I do my review on it, is Everdell Duo. I did get a single player game in, and it's a little bit different than Everdell, but at the same time, it's still Everdell. So I'm fascinated to see how that plays out at the end of the day, but good news so far. I've enjoyed it, but I also enjoy Everdell. So I don't know if this is going to be a game that changes your mind about that. But again, I do want to play this cooperatively with Allie. I do want to get the scenarios played and then do my thoughts on that. And then finally, Perch and Pergola, which I will be going into in depth right now. I did get those to the table as well. So a good couple of weeks for playing some games and getting them out to the table. Hoping to continue that trend as Memorial Day approaches, and then ultimately Origins is fast approaching, so hoping that I leave there either having played more games or possibly, not going up by too much. We'll see. Origins usually is kind of devastating to me, so we'll see what happens. So let's talk about Perch first and foremost. This is a 2 to 5 player game that plays in 30 to 60 minutes, designed by Douglas Hetrick. The art is by Anna Block, and this was published by Inside Up Games. In Perch, players fight for control of locations by commanding birds of their own and other players' flocks. Earn points and command woodland creatures by having the most birds on a location, pushing your foes off the perch, and breaking ties to take the lead. Each round, players add their birds into a shared bag. Players then draw birds of their own, and other players take turns stacking birds on location tiles. Each location tile will award variable points for majorities and sometimes grant players a unique ability. The game ends after 5 rounds, and the player who has earned the most points wins. With a modular tile configuration and a variety of woodland creatures to control, each game will present a new tactical challenge. So this was a review copy. Thank you to Inside Up Games for providing it. I first saw this one at Gamma as well as Pergola, so took away both of those, like trying to make contacts and trying to get both of them because they both looked really interesting to me. I like the theme on both of them. Nature themes usually hit pretty well with me. And this one was definitely not serene, as opposed to more of the Pergola style that was a little bit more serene, but I'll get into that in a minute. So this is a modular area control game, as the description said. Each tile has its own scoring condition, and some of them have like these unique little special abilities. On its surface, it does look just like a standard area control game. You place your little birds out and build up your control over these tiles, and then the majority wins, right? That's not the case at all with this. And I think the very interesting thing about this is the blind draw of these birds out of this bag. And you have the potential to draw your opponent's birds. And you'll get 2 of your own, and then you'll get 2 of your opponent's birds that you'll get to place out onto the board. Sometimes the birds out of the bag, I should clarify, can be your own, but sometimes they are your opponent's. And I think that lends for another level of strategy than you would see in a typical basic area control game where you're putting out your own pieces and just letting them fall where they may. This is kind of adding some tactics into actually placing your opponent's birds. So when do you want to place your own? When do you want to place your opponent's? How do you want to make things look? And then ultimately, what decisions do you want to make to try to help sabotage your opponents and help yourself at the same time? So I thought that was really interesting, a lot of depth. In addition to that, the tiles aren't necessarily basically the more points that you get will be for the majority. You have some variation. Sometimes third place gets the most points, but first place gets a little special ability. Sometimes it's just first place doesn't get any points and second and third place get points. It's a very, very interesting dynamic. The other thing is that if there's a tie for first place or second place or third place, those birds get canceled out. So for instance, in a first place tie, the first and second place points don't even get distributed. It just goes to third place. So it's really cool what you can do, and it makes the area control really tight, which I thought was really fascinating and a lot of fun. The tile effects are super interesting. One of my favorites to me is a tile that if you have too many birds on it, like I think it was 4, if you have 4 or more on it at the end of the round, once it's scored, all the birds would be sent off to this plaza area, which they were worth 1 point at the end of the game, but they're no longer worth anything for your majority. So it does add a little bit of spiciness. How do you want to place your own birds? Do you want to give your opponent points, and then that clears off the tile for the next round? And I gave that tile a lot of thought as I was playing, and it made things really interesting. I think that the teach was decently quick. I think everybody was just about ready to go within about 10 minutes. It did help that everybody had a familiarity with the concepts of what an area control game is, so that definitely helped. I will say that 5 players might be a little bit too much in this game, especially with your more AP prone players. There are more tiles that are added in as you increase the player count, which does help with some of the decision making. It's not so overly tight. You feel like you have a little bit more control over what gets placed where, and you don't have those dominant leads. But I definitely think that 5 players might be a little bit too much when you're dealing with AP prone players. I would stick to the 3 or 4 being the sweet spot. It did run a little bit long for us. I think it would be a little bit shorter next time. do the teach, but I don't think that would be that much shorter. So I would definitely try this if you're going to at 3 or 4. I do feel like that's kind of the sweet spot before it starts getting to be a little bit too long. There is a good amount of direct player interaction in this game, like I said up top, but I didn't really reach too many points that felt really bad to either go and knock a player off of a space or to have it done to you. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's really only one bird at a time that you're dealing with. So it doesn't feel like super powerful. It's just a little touch that might swing some points here and there. Normally, I am not a super huge fan, for those who have listened to the show on a regular basis, of that direct player interaction, but here it didn't feel bad, and I think that that's really the distinction. How much power is given to it, how much control can happen over the swinginess of a game with it, and it did not really feel that bad in this game. So definitely something to watch out for. If you're super averse to player interaction, this one might not be for you, but I did not mind it whatsoever. I also really enjoyed the creature abilities. The artwork in this game, just as an aside, it's super quirky. The one creature that I really liked was the hawk. It had its neck bent like 90 degrees unto itself, and it just looked really fun. The character designs are kind of lighthearted and goofy. Really nice artwork and presentation there. And I think knowing when and how to use the creatures and when these abilities come up and how you can use them to your advantage is really crucial. Because just getting these creatures is a treat. It gives you a little extra boost on one of your turns in the next round that you can do something a little bit additional to kind of hurt your opponents. But really, some of the things that you can do with them and how you place them and how you set them up, I think is really, really crucial to coming out on top in this game. And then the components were really well done. I thought that the birds stacked really well on top of each other. It made for a really neat visual. And I will say that there were these little bases that came into play if you had problems with the birds kind of toppling over as you stack them. We didn't necessarily need them, but towards the end of the game, it probably would have been good to use them, as we just had a couple of minor issues, but nothing too major. But the rest of the components were really well done. I thought that everything was really solid there, including the insert was well organized as well. From a color vision perspective, I thought that the colors used for the birds was okay. I never really had any problem with distinguishing between birds. I will say it would have helped if there was double coding, especially for those people with severe color vision issues. You may wind up having some trouble with this, especially if you're completely colorblind. This may be something that you want to look into before you play this game. Just stay aware of that. As well as the scoring tokens, which were very, very small. And for the majority of the game, I did have somebody else move the tokens for me. But other than that, I thought that the colors were fine. And the presentation overall was also very good. So for my final thoughts, while I do tend to be somewhat picky on area control games these days, Perch is definitely one that captured my interest. The main reasons it is going to be sticking around basically revolve around theme, the modularity that the game brings, all these special tiles and creatures that you can swap out, shuffle around. The board is going to be pretty much different every single time. I think this is going to be one that's ripe for expansions, that you just produce a bunch of new creatures, maybe with some new mechanics to it, and expand the game. But there's going to be a lot of gameplay in this box already for you. So the ability to change up that landscape and that, I think, is going to give this game a lot of longevity. A lot of fun with some direct player interaction that I really didn't mind. I thought that it was pretty good, and this one's sticking around. That's Perch. And the other game that I wanted to talk about today is Pergola. This plays from 1 to 4 players in 45 to 60 minutes. I'm going to try my best with these names. I apologize if I mispronounce them. The designers were Michel Gotobetsky and Przemysl Wojciechak, and the art was by Karolina Kijak. This was published by Rebel Studio. And in Pergola, players develop their gardens, grow new plants, and attract insects and small animals. On their turn, a player chooses one of the 4 available tools, picks the presented items, and arranges them in their garden. They then perform the action corresponding to the chosen tool. Since players have a lot of freedom in arranging plants in their gardens, after 15 rounds, each garden looks completely different and scores differently. The player who accumulates the most points wins. So again, this was a review copy, and thanks to Rebel Studio and Asmodee for getting this out to me. This was another one that I saw at Gamma that I really thought looked interesting, sounded interesting. I actually wanted to go into the play and take for this one, but I did get Harmonies instead. I was in that session instead. I missed the Pergola session, which was a happy little accident, and I wound up with both the games anyway. So thank you for sending this off. And I will say that the core gameplay here is going to be set collection. So people who enjoy set collection, I think you're going to be right at home with this game. The core of the game is super easy to grasp. It's literally in the introduction that I said right up top. You basically got the gist of the game. You're taking a tool, getting the stuff on it, taking the action below it, getting some stuff from that, and you're repeating that for 15 rounds. And you're building up this garden. And the real fun in it is what you're getting and how you're setting up your garden. That is going to determine who wins or loses. What did take a while in this to teach were the different insects and plants and how they scored, because there were some very different things. One insect basically went for height, another insect went for breadth. So the wider that you had that insect base, the more scoring that you did. It was a little bit of information to convey to players up top. What did help really well with this was a very good player aid and reference that you give basically as an additional tile to all of your players, that they can look, they can reference everything from left to right as you're teaching them. And this is the way that the manual is set up and laid out. I thought that was really well done. Once you kind of teach everybody how to read that, they're on their own. Also, Rodney Smith put out a video for this game about 4 hours before I had to teach it, so it kind of verified some of the things that I thought, okay, I'm going to try to teach this way. I'm going to try to convey this information like this. But basically, from front to back in the rulebook is pretty much how it's conveyed, and it does a really good job at doing that. So I highly recommend using the player aid, the reference, and then Rodney's video for reinforcement in your teaches of this game. I like games with multiple pathways to victory, and I think that's where this game is going to be pretty solid. I did see a lot of different strategies kind of unfolding at the table, different gardens being built up, and different strategies where, hey, I'm going to focus on lanterns and get a lantern bonus. I'm going to focus on building up this huge system of trees that are going to branch off and get me a bunch of points for the ladybugs I put on them. There's a whole bunch of different stuff that you can do in this game, and I think that's where it's really interesting. You can really focus on one thing. You can spread out and try to use multiple in-game bonuses. I think that everything is kind of up for grabs in this, and there's some better strategies than others, but there's no like major dominant strategy that you're going to win with this every single time, at least not what I've seen yet. So I really do like that amount of exploration that comes out from this. And at the end of the game, you have this little garden that's going to be in front of you, and you're going to be able to look at it and as you're scoring it, you kind of look and see what you did, which is always fun. There isn't a huge amount of variability in this game. I think the variability is basically out of how the tiles or the tools basically appear in front of you. And that's about it. There's not a huge amount of like, hey, I'm adding these different cards in or I'm adding these different modules in. You are going to see the majority of the game right there in front of you. It's just a matter of how everything kind of unfolds and when you get what. So I do wonder about that from a longevity perspective. What is that going to look like once you do that exploration and once you kind of figure out what your preferred strategies are going to be? That is something that I do wonder about. The open player board concept, like I said, does make for a nice ending state view. You can kind of set things up as you want to, where they make sense to you. And then I like looking at other players' gardens. It's kind of fun. And I will say a note about the art as well. If the art looks familiar, that might be because you've played Meadow before. It's the same publisher and the same artist. I like the vibe of this game a lot. I really like the vibe of Meadow a lot. So this really resonated with me. It looked familiar, and that was for a very good reason. Seeing artists, I think that Carolina did a fantastic job at presenting this very, very beautiful game. From a color vision perspective, really the main thing that requires kind of your color perception, the major thing is the frogs that are going to be out on the board, and they all have double coating, so which one is which. They all do look different, so that is super nice. The iconography from a general vision perspective is a bit small on the tools, especially when you're depicting the lanterns on them. It is a little bit small to figure out exactly what is what. Everything does have some sort of aspect of double coating on it, like the lanterns tell you exactly what they do. It's manageable if you pick up the ones you're having problems with. Like if you see a lantern, you don't know which one it is, you can pick it up and you can kind of see the exact imprint of the text that's on the lantern, but it may be a little bit small. It may be something that people with some vision issues do have a little bit of trouble seeing just due to the size of the iconography. But for my final thoughts, I don't know if Pergola really brings a huge amount new to the table. This is all stuff that we've seen. You take your tool, you get an action, you get some sort of resources, you get an action below it. I think that's things that I've seen done in plenty of other games. The variety of strategies that you can engage in, however, during the game makes for a very fun and enjoyable game that everybody at the table basically said that they would play again. Everybody was excited to play it. I heard multiple times at the table, hey, I really like this. I had the same feelings. This is something that I thought was a very enjoyable experience. Was it something that was super groundbreaking for me? No. But it could be for other players who haven't seen these mechanisms in play before. And I would definitely recommend at least checking it out. I had a great time with it. I thought that the production value on it was fantastic. The storage solution is super awesome. The use of recycled materials as well. Love it. There's so many things that this does right, even though they might not be new. And I think that it'll be a very enjoyable experience for a lot of people. I do plan on diving into the solo content and reporting back on social media. And definitely going to be sticking around for a while and getting some plays out. I know Allie has mentioned that she wants to play it again real soon. So that is Pergola. And I think that'll do it for us today. On the next episode, I will try to put together my games that I'm super excited for at Origins. Excited to see off of the BGG preview list, just kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking for. Can't believe Origins is coming up so incredibly quickly at this point. I think 2 episodes from now might be that ride home show that we talk about, and it's going to be a very interesting one. Might have some special guests on it because I am staying a little bit later than I normally do, so just a hint for that. But if you want to know more about Cardboard Time, you can always go to the website. The Instagram and Blue Sky is at Cardboard Time. The Discord is on the Tabletop Express server. You can always email me at cardboardtime@gmail.com or go to the website for an invite. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time.